Launch is a defining moment for our African cities. It's a defining moment for African urban leadership as well. Today is historic, not just for Johannesburg and Tshwane, but for South Africa and the entire African continent as well. As co-hosts and co-chairs of the 8th cycle, our cities are stepping into a new world stage that guides and signals a new era of African urban leadership. The U20 is more than just a summit. It's a catalyst for reimagining the future of local and global governance through an urban lens. In collaborating across borders, economies, and policy spaces, Johannesburg and Tshwane are setting the precedent for what African cities can achieve when we are united and we share a vision for climate resilience, economic transformation, and sustainable urban development. The global urban future will not be shaped without Africa. And today we take a bold step in ensuring that our cities are central to leading that conversation. So I'm going to get quite quickly into the program. We only have approximately 2 hours here. The first part of setting the scene for today's program comes from 2 video messages that we would have from the C40 cities and the United Cities for Local Government. These video messages from our conveners are the global partners who guide and support the U20 event. The first video will be played, will come from Mr. Mark Watts, the Executive Director of C40 Cities. C40 is the network of approximately 100 global mayors committing to confronting the climate crisis and transforming urban resilience. The second video is from Ms. Emilia Saiz, the Secretary General of United Cities and Local Governments, or UCLG. UCLG is the world's largest network of local, regional, and metropolitan governments amplifying the voices of cities in decision making. These organizations, alongside our 2 cities, will play a crucial role in shaping the Urban 20 Summit in this particular year. Their insights set the foundation for the processes of what promises to be a dynamic, impactful, and transformative engagement. So without any further delay, let me first ask for the 2 videos to be played before we start going into the rest of the processes for today's press launch. Program Director and colleagues, thanks.
On behalf of C40 Cities, one of the conveners and founding partners of U20, alongside our friends at UCLG, it's my great pleasure to welcome the 2025 cycle of the U20. And as the U20 now enters its 8th year, we're delighted to continue this vital work together with the cities of Johannesburg and Tshwane, this year's hosts. So with that in mind, I would like to take this moment to congratulate our co-chairs, Executive Mayor Dada Morero and Executive Mayor Nasiphi Moya, on the launch of this 2025 cycle, which takes place during what really is becoming a landmark year. 10 years since the Paris Agreement was signed, 20 years actually since C40 was created, 30 years since the first COP and the very first time that the G20 has been hosted on the African continent. Hosting the U20 in Africa carries profound significance, spotlighting a region that, despite contributing the least to global emissions, faces disproportionate impacts at the hands of the climate crisis. And yet, despite those everyday hurdles, cities such as Johannesburg and Tshwane continue to demonstrate remarkable leadership, real resilience and innovation to tackle these challenges head on. The overriding purpose of the U20 is to raise the profile of urban priorities in the G20 agenda, proposing solutions and partnerships to the G20 nations that mayors know can make a real difference to people's lives, because mayors are close to people's lives and the services that they need. Starting now, U20 cities will once again begin their collaborative work to unite behind an ambitious joint message to the G20 under the stewardship of the co-chairs. And it's my hope that this year's G20, inspired by world mayors, can cement support for a people-centred urban just transition. A transition where cities lead the shift away from fossil fuels, turning years of promises into tangible action. Action that centres on working people and communities, creates decent jobs and skills, training opportunities for the green economy, reduces poverty, empowers young people, and secures a safe future by preventing the breakdown of the Earth's climate. We're at such a critical moment for global climate cooperation. I look forward to seeing what the U20 will achieve so much for your participation. On behalf of C40 Cities, one of the conveners and
cities and local. Hello. On behalf of United Cities and Local Governments, co-convener of the Urban 20, together with C40, it is a true privilege to be part of this historical milestone of the first ever G20 Summit in Africa under South Africa's presidency. We are pleased to be joining forces with our U20 co-chairs, Executive Mayor Dada Morero and Executive Mayor Nasiphi Moya, on the launch of this 2025 cycle. In the spirit of Ubuntu, we recognize that cities alone, as much as nations alone, cannot thrive in isolation, and that progress towards equality, sustainability, and solidarity cannot be achieved on one's own way. We need to do this together. The South African cities embodied in the South African Local Governments Associations are great champions of inclusive sustainable development, and they will be accompanying us in this process. It is an Ubuntu process. The U20 is ready to team up with the G20 to continue ensuring that equality, solidarity, and sustainability are the engines that drive actions in our cities, communities, and beyond. As we navigate the final stretch of the 2030 agenda, rising inequalities are exacerbating, and we need to ensure that cities remain engines of inclusive growth and sustainable development. By placing social inclusion and equity at the center of the discussion, G20 is ready to work towards digital transformation, the provision of essential services, and climate action. In the current challenging times for the national multilateral system, cities and the local multilateral system are central to making a true shift to bring leading innovation, to ensure that communities identify with global action, triggering true trust, strengthening resilience, and building a shared vision for the future that is rooted in communities' needs, and that originates a new social contract. As we look towards the implementation of the Pact for the Future and the Second World Social Development Summit, the Urban 20 is ready to work together among cities, but also with national governments and international organizations to advance towards a sustainable future for all. South Africa has been a key advocate for sustainable organization well beyond the continent. The country's leadership, including in the municipal movement, has had powerful effects, transformative effects, working towards inclusive multilateralism. We need to put the spotlight in a region, in Africa, that holds the future of humanity. But we also need to work together to ensure progress achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and to face the global challenges that we only find true answers in local and territorial action. We are ready to make this Urban 20 a success. Thank you, South Africa. Thank you, Tshwane. Thank you, Johannesburg. Hello. On behalf of United...
Okay, and thank you to the UCLG and C40 for their messages of support as well. We will hear from the executive mayors, respectively, as soon as we can. But before we get there, it's important for us to understand what the U20 actually is. Who is part of the U20, what are the particular processes, and how does Johannesburg and Tshwane collaborate towards the key outcomes of what the U20 seeks to achieve. So we will have a joint presentation by the U20 Summit coordinators from Tshwane and Johannesburg, respectively. From Tshwane, it's Ms. Dolly Mafa. From Johannesburg, it's Mr. Jan Erasmus. They will present essentially an overview of what U20 is, the identity and logo, and some of the content from the microsite, as well as a joint video that was produced about what we should expect when we start hosting the event later on in this year. So this presentation will cover essentially all the information you need to put U20 into context in the G20 as well, and everything that will go with that. Let me hand over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director. All protocol observed. I'm going to give the presentation about the U20 overview. I don't know, colleagues, if you're going to assist me with the presentation. This is the 8th cycle for the U20. It is for the first time we're having the session in South Africa. I can't see anything on the screen. Okay, here is it. Okay, here is it. Okay. It is for the first time in South Africa we are having the U20 cycle, and we assume it's going to come after 20 years from now. That is why we are so much excited about the event. I'm not going to give the background about what is G20, but I will outline how does U20 fit into the bigger U20. We are having, in the G20 is having 3 tracks, the Shepherd tracks, on which you will see the various sector departments: agriculture, anti-corruption, culture, development, education, energy transition. There is another track called finance. It is about the framework, architecture, financial inclusion, health, international taxation. We do fall under the engagement group. There are 13 engagement groups that are under G20. Business 20, civil 20, parliament 20, startup 20. You will see the U20 under the engagement groups. Okay, next slide. Now the outline of what is U20. Next slide. U20 is a diplomatic initiative facilitated by C40 and UCLD. It brings together major cities from G20 countries that raise profile of urban issues and enhance the role of the cities in the G20 agenda. It focuses on climate change and sustainable development, including the socio-economic issues at the nexus of sustainable development goals. It also was launched around 2017 and inaugurated took place in Buenos Aires on 2018. That is why I was saying it is the 8th cycle. Since the inaugural meeting in Buenos Aires, several cities have hosted it. Tokyo, Riyadh, Rome and Milan, and others. For this year, it is City of Tshwane and City of Johannesburg. Each participating city is represented by its mayor and its Sherpa. The U20 also invites the G20 and non-G20 capital cities as observers. Next slide. As the beginning of the process, the co-chairs identify the priorities, which becomes the basis of the discussions, but they have to be aligned to the G20. Our priorities that has been identified is economic opportunities and financing, climate action and urban resilience, social inclusion and equity, digital transformation and innovation. And it's based on the pressure points that we're having as a country, but as most of cities are faced in. And it is about creating the pathways for economic opportunities and also making accessible for all. And the G20 priorities, they are as indicated there. Next slide. The U20 cycle is standard in most of in all of the years. But for the 2025 U20 cycle, we got handed over on the 17th November. We started our chairmanship from the 1st of December 2024. Currently, we have circulated the welcome letters and requests for the Sherpas, and we are now planning for the online Sherpa, which is happening this coming Thursday. Is a closed session, which will be led by our Sherpas. This is the beginning of the draft 0 of our communique. And then we'll then be building up on that communique. In June, as City of Tshwane will be hosting the in-person Shepherds meeting, which we call it an African Mayors Assembly, on which we will want to bring the African flavor into that. In September, City of Johannesburg will be hosting the U20 Mayors Summit, and this is where the handover of the final communique will be happening. And then we'll be going to the G20 Summit. In parallel, we have monthly webinars and the stakeholder outreach programs. The intention is to ensure that we have community engagement, public participating that are contributing towards the overall U20 platform. The webinars have already started last week, and then we are doing them on a monthly basis. We do have 40 U20 participating cities. They are members of the U20. They are spread along the 7 regions, 3 cities in the Latin America, 1 city, and also in the North America, there are 6 cities. So you can see from the presentation that they are spread amongst the cities. It's Buenos Aires, in Brazil, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro, and Sydney, Montreal, Mexico City, Monterrey, and New York City, Houston, and Los Angeles, Beijing, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Delhi, Bengaluru, Jakarta, Tokyo, Osaka, Moscow, Seoul, Paris, Strasbourg, Berlin, Rome, London, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Helsinki, Istanbul, Riga, Johannesburg, Durban, and Tshwane for South Africa, Freetown, and Nairobi. These are the member cities. And we have the observer cities. They are 20 in numbers. They are spread around the regions. What we have done, it is just to make sure that the Africa representation has increased. Last year, there were only 3 cities from South Africa, which was City of Joburg, City of Tshwane, and eThekwini. We have tried to ensure that we include other cities for Africa. As you can see, Brazzaville, and Addis Ababa, Accra, Dar es Salaam, Windhoek, and Gaborone. They are the new members. Other cities, they are spread around the region. We do have the partners, which changes annually depending on who is hosting. In South Africa, in addition to what we have in the internationally, SALGA is also one of our members, African Center of Cities, South African Cities Network, Gauteng City Region Observatory, Metropolis, UN Habitat, and OECD, UNESCO Public Servant. I will not read the list, but these are the partners that provide the knowledge hub and provide us with content for the U20 activities. There are some key events that we have arranged. There is a very outstanding team that is doing the planning and coordination work from both cities. The key events are divided into 3 tracks: the Shepherd tracks, webinar track, and outreach track. We will be having the launches today, as you can see, and then we'll be having an online Shepherd meeting on Thursday, which is closed session for all the shepherds of the cities that we have outlined. Then we'll be having the summit in June and another summit in September. We have arranged the webinar, which are equally shared amongst the cities. We are sharing them according to the priorities. As you can see that we have already had our first webinar, which was about digital transformation and innovation. We are going towards an economic opportunities webinar, and finance, climate action and urban resilience, and the inclusion and equity and food security webinar. We have outlined the several outreach programs which are also spread along the priorities, just to create awareness for G20 and U20, and also to disclose to the community about the communique and other Shepherd tracks that are there. Next slide. Our webinar that we'll be having this coming Thursday, it is the closed session for the shepherds, source shepherds, and the partners. It is the 3-hour session on which our executive mayors as the co-chairs will be opening the ceremony, and then we'll be initiating the activities as you can outline there. It's an interactive session between the Sherpas because that is where they start bringing out their voice as the cities from there. Then it is about initiating the communique. For the June session, we have the summary of the planned program. We have the plenary program, which is going to be the closed sessions, and then we anticipate to have the partner track, which is the parallel sessions, on which we are opening it up for the partners, depending on what is offered or what is requested. What you are seeing in the program there, it is the parallel sessions that we'll be having. It is going to take 2 days. We are also having the bilateral track on which our co-chairs will be having bilateral with the cities or the partners that will be coming during June or so. There are 5 bilaterals that will be happening by the conveners and the chairpersons. But in summary, the program is going to take 2 main days during around June, and then to initiate or strengthen the communique as indicated. The same thing applies to September, which is going to take 3 days. It is going to be hosted by City of Johannesburg, and the planning is the same. We have the parallel tracks or the partners track. We also have the plenary track, which is it will be closed, open, closed, depending on how it's rolled out. We have different sessions, as you can see from the screen, but the intention is to outline the key U20 activities out there. We will also be having the bilateral meetings on which the co-chairs and the conveners will be having bilaterals with the partners. Next slide. Yes, I indicated that it will be 2 days. It will be open and closed sessions. There will be the media sessions in the process. Okay. This is the summary of what the webinars are outlined. They are linked or they are spread in that way. Every month we'll be having those webinars. The intention is to have the webinars before the in-person meeting in June, just to make sure that we have the voices from the ground. Next slide. We take this event or this U20 Summit to be having a legacy or impact for both cities. We believe that it's going to boost the economy of the cities. It's going to strengthen the global presence of those cities. We believe that also there will be international recognition. The foreign investments and diplomatic relations, they are going to be enhanced. Next. The urban infrastructure improvements and the smart cities concept or initiative is going to be initiated or strengthened. It will enhance the local innovation and technology in a way of showcasing the sustainability elements. The Tech and Innovation Hub is going to be emphasized during the discussion about the role of the smart cities and urbanization in the 21st century. Next slide. The social and cultural impact and the policy influence. That is the impact or the legacy that we think this event is going to bring to both cities or South Africa as a whole. I'm going to the next slide. I think, yes, it's a continuation of the benefits. It's about the tourism, legacy, and the environmental and sustainability initiatives that this event is bringing, the cleaner energy and the green spaces. Next slide. I'm going to hand over to my colleague to present the logo and the microsite. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Executive Mayor, special guest. It's an honor just to talk to the logo. Next slide, please. I think people think a logo is just a fancy picture, but a logo is very significant. It's about identity, it's about association. And this logo was just not pulled out of the air. We've started with the symbolism, and it's basically you need to look at the shapes, you need to look at the colors, you need to look at the imagery. A logo communicates without needing words. The colors also play a very crucial role, and the shapes also carry symbolic value. So I think, so we started off with a storyboard, or what we call a mood board. Next slide, please. But then if you start to look at the meaning of the logo as well, first of all, the icon. And in terms of this, the icon is the protea. The protea is the national flower. You will also see that the protea, the king protea, is the symbol of the G20 event as well. But all these events are interrelated, and therefore you will see that all the logos of all the engagement groups will have the protea design in some other way. But each one is unique and each one is different. So what is the meaning of the symbolism of the protea in terms from a urban 20 point of view? First of all, resilience. You know, proteas, you can have fires, but a protea will survive. It will rise again, and you will see it therefore. So the symbolism of resilience, that's the same with cities. Cities are very resilient. Cities are at the forefront of things that's happening, things that's going wrong, and also with their stakeholders as well. So the concept of resilience is key to all cities. Beauty, the unique appearance and the exotic beauty. Diversity, which is extremely important. 40 cities, member cities, and 20 observer cities. You can imagine the type of debates on social equity and inclusion. There's not a single view that everybody agree with, but you will reach some form of sufficient consensus to decide what are the most critical things that cities want to convey to heads of state. So that communique is really going to be a document informed by a range of different debates from across the world. Courage. You need to have courage to convey your points and to stand for what you think is right and not to give in. And lastly, transformation. What's not working needs to be transformed. So firstly, this icon is very, very symbolic of the things that I've just discussed. Then also the colors. The colors are also equally significant. You will see it represents the colors of the flag and all the national symbols as well. But in short, it's primarily the diversity that it's representing. So it's not only the diversity in South Africa and in Africa, but also the diversity of everybody that will form part of this particular process. Next, please. So there you can see the logo. You've seen it already here, and it's based on the Protea nerifiolia, and that's the one that we're going to see throughout. It's already on the G20 website under the engagement groups as well, and there you will also see all the other logos with the Protea's design as well. I think the B20, Y20, all of those are already up there. Thank you. Next, please. So the last point is just on the website. This website, and I think it's very important to take down the address of the website, is www.u20sa2025.org. This website only went live this morning. But on this website, you can continuously come back to that because there will be new information on an ongoing basis on the typical opinions and the activities that's going to take place throughout the year. Dolly mentioned the June Sherpa, she also mentioned the Mayoral Sherpa, but in between, the information of the webinars will be independent opinions of key people from across the globe. So the webinars will be informed, there will be activists participating in those events, but that will inform and shape the discussions within the various events as well. We will also create a track in there for partners to develop opinion pieces and provocations. Those are not the opinions of the Urban 20, but it's the opinions of the partners that's participating in this process. So next slide, please. So the website is something that you can come back to. Next slide, please. That's just the landing page. And then importance here, so what you will find in the website, it's obviously the home page. Then the About U20, that's basically just sort of the historical overview of previous cities that hosted it. You can also go to the original site of u20.org, basically, and see all the previous communiques that's on there as well. Then on city info and events, that's where you will see what will take place when. Also an overview of the cities itself, and that's where we'll also start to add the tracks for the partners to include their information as well. So that's basically what the website is all about. It's going to be a living website. Not everything is on there now, but from now on, you can go back on a regular basis and you would be able to see what's there. Program Director, thank you very much. This is the end of our input, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan and Dolly, for the presentation, for the revealing of the logo, the symbolism, and everything else that's going with what the U20 would stand for 2025. I know there was supposed to be a video. Is there no video, or is that fine? Because there was supposed to be a joint video as well on the program. Otherwise, if there's no video, I can move next. So, is there a video? Okay, so we will now hear from the executive mayors from the respective cities on an outline of their initiatives towards the building up of the U20 Summit in June and September respectively, as we've heard now about when these dates and what will be undertaken in these particular timeframes would occur. I'll start by introducing the executive mayors. The executive mayor of Tshwane, Dr. Nasiphi Moya, is a seasoned political leader and governance expert with a deep commitment to institutional reform, public accountability and urban transformation. Her excellency embodies a rare blend of academic prowess, strategic acumen and an unwavering dedication to public service. With a PhD in political science from the University of Western Cape, Dr. Moya has carved an illustrious career, shaping the very foundations of governance frameworks, public policy and performance management across the political and local government sphere as well. In addition to a PhD, Dr. Moya holds a Master of Philosophy specializing in public policy and administration, obtained at the University of Cape Town in 2011, and in 2007, Dr. Moya graduated with a Bachelor of Social Science, Politics, Public Policy and Administration as well from the UCT, from the University of Cape Town. Having served as a group head in the Office of the Chief Whip, a Chief of Staff in the Office of the Executive Mayor, and ascending to the pinnacle of leadership in Tshwane as Executive Mayor, Dr. Moya has redefined the art of governance. The Executive Mayor's tenure, marked by a steadfast commitment to institutional reform, fiscal discipline, and urban transformation, has solidified her reputation as a trailblazer in municipal administration. Under her visionary leadership, Tshwane has emerged as a beacon of progress and innovation. As Tshwane co-hosts the 8th U20 Summit in 2025, Dr. Moya's influence will extend far beyond South Africa's borders, positioning the capital city as a global leader in sustainable development, smart city innovation, and inclusive urban policy. Join me in welcoming the Executive Mayor of Tshwane, Dr. Nasiphi Moya. Mayor.
Good morning. Aren't you supposed to say morning back? In Tshwane, we are very generous people and kind people. When we greet, we expect to be greeted back. Yes. Mayor Morero, the Executive Mayor of the City of Joburg and the Co-Chair of U20 South Africa. The members of the Mayoral Committee, both from the City of Tshwane and the City of Johannesburg, the Honorable Speaker of the City of Tshwane, Section 79 chairpersons, the City Manager, the Acting City Manager from the City of Joburg, the conveners of Urban 20, both from C40 as well as UCLG, the Urban 20 members, observers and partners, the CEO of SALGA, distinguished guests from Tshwane, Johannesburg and beyond, esteemed colleagues and partners, members of the local and international media, and last but certainly not least, the citizens of South Africa, the residents of Joburg and Tshwane, and those that are joining us globally. This morning it fills me with pride, Mayor Morero, because we have shown that it is possible for government to collaborate. I don't think there's been many pictures of mayors working together like our pictures in the past 4 months, and it's a good thing at a time that our country is looking for unity among leaders. So thank you so much for your leadership and your partnership in this journey. But ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for joining us, because this is not a Morero Moya event. This is all our event, not only as Tshwane and Joburg, not only as Gauteng or South Africa, but also it extends to Africa, the global South, and the world in general. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Jacaranda City, the capital city of the Republic of South Africa. It is an honor to stand before you today as we launch the Urban 2025 cycle, a landmark moment, not just for Joburg and Tshwane, but for South Africa, the African continent, and the global South. This is a historic moment, not just for our cities, but for South Africa and the entire global South. This moment is a recognition of the role of African cities must play in shaping the global urban agenda. It is an opportunity for us to take our rightful place at the table where decisions that impact our cities, our people, and our future are made. Under the theme, Cities Leading the Way in Reimagining Global Change, we are not just hosting the U20, we are leading a global conversation about the future of our cities and the role that they must play in addressing the most pressing challenges of our time. The world is more urban than ever before. More than half of the population now lives in cities, and this number continues to rise. The future of humanity is an urban future, and it is here, in the streets, businesses, and communities of our cities, where the world's most pressing challenges will be resolved. Yet, many of our residents, the urban future they experience is one of struggle. Across Tshwane and Joburg, people face the daily realities of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. These challenges are not unique to us. They are shared by cities across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the whole of the developing world. And yet, even in the face of these difficulties, our cities remain places of immense potential. Johannesburg is the economic engine of South Africa, a city built on resilience, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Tshwane is the capital city, the center of governance and policy, a knowledge hub, and a driver of national transformation. As co-hosts of U20 2025, our mission is clear: to ensure that the voice of African cities is heard on the world stage and that the priorities of the Global South are brought into the G20 agenda. We are building on the foundation laid by Sao Paulo and Rio, but our goal is to ensure that this presidency reflects the realities of African cities and the needs of our communities. Our key priorities of this U20 cycle include economic opportunities and financing, climate action and urban resilience, social inclusion and equity, and digital transformation and innovation. Each of these priorities is deeply relevant to our cities, but for me, the matter of social inclusion and equity is particularly close to my heart. U20 is a global initiative, but its success will not be measured in communiques and declarations alone. Its impact must be felt at a local level. This is not just about diplomatic meetings and international cooperation. It is about real economic opportunities, real investment, and real solutions for our people. It is about ensuring that the people of Tshwane and Johannesburg see themselves in this process and feel its benefit. Mayor Morero, I did say even in Brazil, I'm not looking to host a cliche of an event. I'm looking to host an event that will be impactful for the people of Tshwane. And I want to repeat this commitment, that as a co-chair of this U20 cycle, I am committed to making U20 relevant to our residents. How we will do that? Impact cannot be achieved without the involvement of the residents of our cities. Whether it is through our planning for infrastructure development, through our climate budget initiative, where whatever plan that we have for infrastructure thinks about the climate impact of the work that we do. Whether it is to support the initiative by the titans of industry in our city that have decided to launch a green foundation. Whether it is through the bicycle lanes transportation, bicycle transportation lanes in Mamelodi, or the Ari Jwaleng tree planting campaign, and where more than 15,000 trees have been planted to date. We must use this platform to not just to advocate for our cities on the global stage, but to showcase their resilience, innovation, and leadership to our communities. If U20 25 is to be truly impactful, it must extend beyond government officials and politicians. We are committed to ensuring that the U20 process engages the people it is meant to serve.
That means creating spaces for public dialogue and community participation, ensuring that our residents have a voice in shaping urban policies. It means fostering connections between local entrepreneurs and global investors, creating pathway for businesses to grow. It means recognizing that Tshwane as a knowledge hub has world-class institutions that must be part of this conversation. It is important to note that this is not just about the city of Tshwane and Johannesburg, but through our partnership with SALGA and SA Cities Network, we endeavor to showcase other cities and towns across South Africa that are experiencing the same challenges that we are facing. The University of Pretoria, Tshwane University of Technology, and UNISA are more than just institutions of higher learning. They are centers of research, innovation, and thought leadership. They are where the next generation of urban planners, environmental scientists, and policymakers are being trained. They are producing the solutions that will define the future of African cities. As we shape the U20 agenda, we will work closely with these institutions and ensure that their research and expertise inform our discussions. We will also use this opportunity to highlight the role that academic partnerships can play in urban transformation, from advancing smart city solutions to tackling infrastructure challenges. It is against this backdrop that I'm excited that City of Tshwane will proudly host the U20 Sherpa meeting in June 2025. This will be a crucial moment in the U20 cycle, bringing together global city leaders, policymakers, and urban experts to shape the recommendations that will be presented to the G20. But we see this as more than just a meeting. This is a chance to showcase Tshwane's unique culture, heritage, and commitment to innovation. It is an opportunity to bring together academics, government officials, the private sector, and civil society to demonstrate that what South Africa is capable of. Cities are on the front line of the climate crisis, economic inequality, and social exclusion. It is time for our voices to be heard at the highest levels of global decision-making. This is our moment to lead, not just as the City of Tshwane or City of Johannesburg, but as Africa's voice in the global urban conversation. Through U20 2025, we have the opportunity to shape a future that is just, sustainable, and inclusive. A future where African cities are not just participants, but leaders in the global urban agenda. We look forward to working with our fellow U20 cities, our communities, and our partners to make this a success. Let us seize this opportunity, showcase the best of South African leadership, and drive real change of our people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That was the Mayor of Tshwane. Also emphasizing the legacy and sustainability of this event and how it will translate to future groundbreaking initiatives between cities working in partnership as well. Let me now introduce the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, Mr. Sello Enoch Dada Morero, who's a seasoned political leader and governance strategist with a deep commitment to financial resilience, urban transformation, and sustainable development. As the regional chair of the ANC in Johannesburg, he has played a key role in shaping the city's political and economic landscape, advocating for inclusive economic growth, spatial justice, and modernized forms of governance. His administration is focused on rejuvenating and restoring the inner city of Johannesburg, strengthening infrastructure, driving economic innovation to position Johannesburg as Africa's leading financial and smart city hub as well. His extensive experience in municipal governance, finance, and service delivery makes him a formidable leader in local government in South Africa. Beyond Johannesburg, Mayor Morero plays a significant global role in urban diplomacy and sustainable development. He currently serves as the president for the Global Fund for Cities Development, FMDV, where he facilitates international partnerships for urban financing and resilience. He also holds senior positions in Metropolis and UCLG as well. Under his leadership, Johannesburg will also co-host the 8th Urban 20 Summit, bringing together leaders from across and around the world to align urban development solutions with the G20 agenda. His academic credentials include a BA in Public Management, a postgraduate diploma, and a Master's in Public Management and Policy Development from the University of London, demonstrating his strong foundation in governance, policy formulation, and global urban leadership. His vision is clear: to make Johannesburg a globally competitive, sustainable, and economically inclusive city that leads Africa's urban future. Allow me to welcome the Mayor of Johannesburg. Thanks.
Oh, it must be adjusted. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests who are here, the Executive Mayor of Tshwane, Nasiphi Moya, the Deputy Mayor of Tshwane, Councillor Modise, and the entire Mayoral Committee of Tshwane, the Mayoral Committee members of the City of Johannesburg who are here, Councillor Margaret Arnolds and Councillor Munisi, city managers who are here, the acting CEO of the City of Johannesburg. Let me also acknowledge the CEO of SALGA, and once again acknowledge the C40 and the Secretary of the UCLG, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the heart of our Urban 20, we stand firm in our belief that cities are bridges where the world comes together. We're reminded that our strength lies in our ability to listen, connect, and work together. As Johannesburg and Tshwane embraces the hosting this global platform, let us use this moment to focus on what unites us and to create cities that work for everyone. This is our chance to show the world that through collaboration, compassion, and bold leadership, we can turn challenges into opportunities and build a future that's brighter, greener, fairer, and more inclusive for all. It is a privilege to stand before you today as we officially launch Johannesburg and Tshwane's co-chairing of the Urban 2025. This is a historic moment, not just for our cities, but for Africa as a whole. For the first time, not one but two African cities will lead this influential forum, bringing the priorities of African cities and the Global South to the forefront of the global agenda. We received this honor in Brazil in 2024, and on that day, the entire hall of delegates stood up and danced for the song called Jerusalem. I thought the video today will have a Vavavoom song, but the song was not Vavavoom. I think we need a background song on the day of the assembly in June and on the day of the summit in September. Some piano that is really, really rocking, so that we can showcase our visitors that indeed South Africa has a lot to offer. We take this baton from Rio and Sao Paulo, and we are ready to build on their work to ensure that cities remain key voices in the discussion shaping our shared future. U20 cities play a critical role in engaging with the G20, working alongside national governments to tackle today's complex challenges that require joint solutions across all spheres of government. The Urban 20 is a powerful platform that provides mayors from the world's most influential cities and from the world's most influential cities an opportunity to shape discussions on sustainable development, economic equity, and climate resilience. Today, the majority of the global population live in cities. Our cities drive growth, innovation, and culture, but they also bear the brunt of global crisis. As urban leaders, we must be at the forefront of creating new solutions. We know of Marabastad, we know of Hillbrow, which requires us to turn around our cities and make them better cities. Johannesburg is a city of resilience, innovation, and opportunity. But we are like cities around the world are navigating a complex reality. At this stage, let me paraphrase President Ramaphosa at the World Economic Forum, as he said, I quote, "As we confront the challenges of the 21st century, from climate change to pandemics, from poverty to terrorism, from migration to artificial intelligence, we do so in a time of rising geopolitical tensions, unilateralism, nationalism, and economic uncertainty. We are called upon to harness that most powerful and enduring of human attributes, mutually beneficial cooperation and collaboration." At the heart of the Urban 20, we stand firm in our belief that cities are the bridges where the world comes together. We are reminded that our strength lies in our ability to listen, connect, and collaborate. As Johannesburg and Tshwane, as we embrace co-hosting of this global platform, let us use this moment to focus on what unites us and to create cities that work for all. The significance of South Africa hosting this event, the U20, is more than just an honor. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for Africa, and it's a moment to bring our priorities to the global agenda, to highlight our unique urban challenges from informal settlement to climate adaptation, and to showcase our strength, innovation, resilience, and boundless potential. For Johannesburg and Tshwane, this is an opportunity to solidify our positions as international hubs for business, diplomacy, and culture. We call on our communities to embrace this moment, to welcome our global visitors, and to work together to ensure that our cities and our beautiful country leave a lasting impression. Beyond the summit, this event will boost tourism, attract investment, and create jobs, transforming our cities for years to come. Our key priorities as co-chairs are the following in relation to G20: economic opportunities and financing, climate action and urban resilience, social inclusion and equity, digital transformation and innovation. So these are the key priorities that we have adopted to guide us through the 2025 U20. As co-chairs, we are committed to making the 2025 U20 more interactive, inclusive, and impactful than ever before by bringing in more voices through webinars, workshops, and extended partnerships and participation from more African cities. The U20 Mayors Summit in 2025 will be a defining moment, bringing together global urban leaders to adopt the Declaration of Collective Action. This year presents an incredible opportunity. Mayors have time to raise the profile of the U20 communique with their country Sherpa prior to the final G20 in November. A call to action: the significance of co-chairing this event, this year's U20, cannot be understated. Let us seize this moment. Let us come together as government, business, civil society, and communities to showcase that our cities, Johannesburg and Tshwane, on a national level and global stage, Together we can turn this opportunity into lasting progress and build a legacy of resilience, sustainability, and prosperity for generations to come. To the city of Tshwane, be alive to the fact that your mayor has been given a new name. So the delegates that will be ascending to Johannesburg may struggle with pronouncing Nasiphi and will possibly call her Nasiphi. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you to the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg there, and also for reinforcing the message of the power of cities, being that driver of solutions to deal with urban challenges in a unified way as well. I'd like to call upon the media spokespersons or the mayoral spokespersons to host a Q&A now with the media. So the respective Tshwane and Johannesburg media spokespersons will now take over for the next couple of minutes, and they will then host the Q&A. I'm not sure who's going first. Are you going first? Chris, you going first? Okay, I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Program Director. Good afternoon. Good morning, colleagues. I am Samgera Mkopozi. I have the pleasure of serving as the mayoral spokesperson for the Mayor of the City of Tshwane, Dr. Nasiphi Moya. As you know, most of you colleagues have worked with you before. You may feel free to raise your hand. I will identify you and you will raise your question and direct it obviously to whom you're directing the question and which media house you represent, so we can ensure that all your questions are answered. What I'll do is I'll take a round of 3 questions and then we'll go back and circle back if there are any more outstanding questions for the Executive Mayor that need to be answered. With that said, there we go there. Any other questions? EWN here, a newsroom there, and I'll come back and start with you in the next round, Pule.
Thank you so much. This is just for Mayor Nasiphi, please. Our leaders would like to know, my name is Elise Parker from the Tory Record newspaper. We're in the taxi group. Mayor, I'd just like to know the budget that the money is going to come from. The budget that the money is coming from. Would that be last year's budget? Was it 2025-26 budget? How much have you budgeted for the summits? And what would this money be spent on? Is it plane tickets? Is it accommodation? And then just my second question, I like your focus on the tourism. So the role players that you will be including for the tourism angle, can you just explain a little bit about that as well? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elise, for that question.
From Eyewitness News. Just a few from me, please. The first is, when it comes to the priorities that you've identified, climate change and climate financing is among those. Last week when we had the finance track in Cape Town, the issue of climate financing was a sticking point, especially with the US pushing back a bit on that. What's your approach and what communication have you had with the mayors, particularly in the US, the 3 cities, New York, Houston, I think, and LA, you said, in terms of addressing those, so that the issues and the geopolitical issues that we're seeing on a national scale, that they're not spilling over into addressing some of the issues of local government. The second one, do you by any chance have an investment target that you would like to reach by the end of this particular summit? You mentioned quite a number of international guests coming in, investors looking at these 2 particular cities at the moment, and hopefully raising the appetite amongst the investors. Do you have investment targets? And then in terms of smart cities, I mean, both Joburg and Tshwane are struggling with, I want to say basics, I'll say basics, infrastructure and so on, getting a handle of that. How do you imagine that creating smart cities in both Gauteng and Joburg and Gauteng overall is not a pipe dream when you haven't quite gotten a handle on that. And then just the last one, debt sustainability on a national scale again is a big one. Both Joburg and Tshwane sometimes battle to balance the books from time to time. How do you work around that? And what, I think it was Mayor Morero, I think you went to the World Bank at the end of last year and Standard Bank trying to raise new debt to address some of the issues that you have when it comes to infrastructure. How do you work around debt sustainability and the messaging to some of the financial institutions globally? Thank you.
Thanks, Noglunga. And then yourself, Junior.
Junior Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. Just to piggyback on the question that has been previously asked, on the challenges that are currently facing the two cities, even as you speak right now, to the Mayor of Johannesburg, there are currently water marches, protests around water issues. Do you think this inspires confidence as you take up this co-chair of such an important forum? And to the Mayor of Tshwane, you spoke a lot about making sure that this is not just another global engagement or a talk show. You want to ensure that your citizens do benefit from this. What exactly would you be doing to try and ensure that the citizens, especially of Tshwane, do benefit from this? Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. EM?
Let me attempt to respond to some of the question in this manner. Firstly, of course, in terms of the world geopolitics, you'd understand that with the election of the President of the United States, we immediately signed certain laws into, which meant, for example, we would have lost some of the aid that was impacting on AIDS and HIV in South Africa. And we are aware now that most of our institutions are beginning to feel the brunt, with some of the NGOs that were focused on AIDS and HIV are now closing down. You are aware that the Global South is beginning to redefine its position in the world politics. And we have seen the shift over time with the BRICS and all others that have joined the Global South to define a new agenda and moving the world from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. So in essence, part of what the G20 or the U20 has to commit to and pronounce on is how to ensure that cities that are in underdeveloped and third world countries are going to grow and define ourselves within the Global South agenda. Now, if you look at the American politics as it stands now, cities in the United States that we have spoken to are actually led by the Democrats, which presents another interesting angle in the American politics, because all the mayors currently in those cities that we spoke to are mayors from the Democratic Party, from the Democrats, not Democratic Party, the Democrats. And certainly they have now defined a different agenda and are part of the UCLG. They've always believed that they have to participate in global politics to ensure that they can contribute towards building a better world. So we'll see with the new changes that are to happen in the United States, what impact it will have. You know, already in South Africa, we're battling a threat in terms of AGOA. How is it going to go? Is the Americans not going to increase the tariffs or rather decide to get out of some of the agreements that we entered into? We know the implication of AGOA in South Africa would mean losing just around 60,000 jobs. So we are hoping the president and of course his cabinet has been constantly in discussions with the United States so that we can arrest some of those issues. There are challenges in terms of infrastructure indeed, especially in our cities. And in this case, I would respond about Johannesburg in particular, where we are faced with road infrastructure challenges which require us to be able to raise enough capital to attend to those. You know that from time to time, for us to support our budgets, our budget is funded from three main sources. One being our own money, which constitute about 70% of what we must raise from the surpluses of water and electricity and rates and taxes. The other percentage will be from borrowing, and the remainder is grants. And yes, our revenue has been shrinking over the years because the model of local government was established on the assumptions that the surpluses of water and electricity will finance municipalities to a large extent. But with people now moving to alternative energy sources and water sources by doing boreholes and so on, we've seen that, of course, our revenues are shrinking, which requires us to rethink and reposition financing of municipalities. SALGA is at the forefront of engaging with national government on reviewing the financing of municipalities. But indeed, we are doing our level best. We've prioritized certain routes within Johannesburg, which are G20 routes, to ensure that at least we can make them to be at the standard at which they should be. No potholes, no crisis or traffic signals that are not working. So we are focusing on that. But we are generally focusing on the infrastructure issue, including the water infrastructure. You'd know the reason why in the last month we didn't have water. We've fixed the problem, which was an electricity pump at Ekenhof station. Now, Ekenhof is one of the biggest stations in Gauteng. It supplies water right up to Rustenburg, and the entire 60% of Johannesburg relies on Ekenhof substation for them to have water, right up to Madibeng. So yes, there was a challenge, but where we are now, we've got water supply throughout Johannesburg. No much challenges, and all the residents are receiving water. But we continue to call on residents, in fact, even the residents of Tshwane, or the entire residents of Gauteng, that they must use water sparingly. It's a resource we don't have. In fact, our consumption in Gauteng has went even beyond what Rand Water is able to apportion, both the city of Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Johannesburg. So we need to find ways of getting our residents to consume and use water sparingly. So those are some of the challenges that I thought I should respond to. Will it inspire confidence? It depends on how we present our cities, and we've been able to present our cities as cities that are resilient, cities that are able to confront the challenges that they are faced with. And you can see, as and when we confront our challenges, you can see that there are resolutions of those problems. You are aware that even now Johannesburg is focused on the revitalization of the inner city, or the CBD of Johannesburg, and there's been work in the last 2 weeks focusing there to ensure bylaw enforcement, cleaning of the inner city, dealing with hijacked buildings, and all sorts of things that are happening in Hillbrow, Berea, Uval, and of course the CBD. So there's work that we are doing in the inner city. I think I've covered, you'll deal with the other section of the questions.
I was hoping Mayor will cover the budget question as well for Tshwane next time. Elise, for those who may have seen or had sight to the draft adjustment budget of the city of Tshwane, there was a 10 million rand that was allocated to this event. Unfortunately, we are the city that will have to justify to the residents of Tshwane why we would take 10 million rand and fund an event and not fix their street lights. We then, as the mayoral executive, took a very risky decision of removing the entire 10 million rand and committed to raise funds ourselves through sponsorships. And so there's zero budget for this event on the budget that was approved by council on Thursday. So when you don't see us, know that we are busy begging for money from all sides of the city Fortunately, we have, people who have indicated that they would support the event for various reasons. It's a good event, so we are not worried that we won't be able to host an event that we are all proud of. In terms of the tourism question, obviously we want to rely as much as possible on our in-house capacity in terms of how do we present the city of Tshwane to the world. And therefore, that would be the first point of contact. We do have heritage sites as the city of Tshwane that would love, in between a very packed schedule, to show our guests, whether your Freedom Park, whether your Church Square, whether your Mamelodi or Atteridgeville, we want to showcase our city proudly. However, we do have partners that we are working with. For instance, the Tshwane Tourism Association, the Dinogang Tourism Association, Small Tourism Enterprise Association, Gauteng Tourism Authority, National Guest Houses. So those are some of the stakeholders that we must work with, because we also just need to make sure that our guests are safe while they are here. So us working with those stakeholders will be able to give the assurance to our guests that they will be safe and be able to be catered for. I think on the side of Nokukanya, the conversation we are having with climate finance and it being a priority here, it's a continuation of the discussion of the 8 years that the U20 has been there. The sticking point, as you are saying, is the issue of financing. We talk about the realities of climate change and the impact that it's, in Tshwane as we speak, there are displaced families because of the floods, and that's one of the ways that in Tshwane we've felt the impact of climate change. We know what needs to be done. We need to have infrastructure that responds to floods, for instance, that our roads must have appropriate and proper stormwater drainage, which there was a time in the country that the legislation did not require that when you design a road, you must have a stormwater drainage. As a result, now we are caught up in that space. So when we then talk about the solutions to that, we then say, well, as cities across the world, we just don't have the financial muscle to respond to climate change, because the response to climate change is going to require extraordinary thinking and planning. And so that's one part. But the second part is that with our legislation in South Africa, where even a triple P doesn't take less than 2 years, how do you then welcome global financing? How will we make sure that we don't frustrate the investors that we want to come to our cities? And so that's why the conversation with SALGA is very important, because there are reforms that we're advocating for. Say, is MFMA assisting us as cities to raise our funds? When funds come here, who is our guarantor? Is it National Treasury? Is it the Reserve Bank? So in terms of that, just the financing, it's for us, the backlog of infrastructure across the world is in the trillions, US dollars. And we then say in South Africa and in Tshwane specifically, we've got 65 billion backlog. We know that City of Tshwane won't be able to raise 65 billion rand in a period of 10 years. Question is, how do we get the assistance, but also what do we need to enable that assistance through investment? In terms of quantification of the investment, no, we have not quantified to say out of this, it's part of the work that we must do. What we know is we have packaged the projects that we want it to be financed. So you can say the quantification of investment is 65 billion, but we have prioritized and say out of this U20 engagement and in between discussions, if we can just fix our water infrastructure, our electricity infrastructure, our roads infrastructure, and just turn our cities to be a livable city, that would have gone a long way. Obviously, there are sub-projects there, whether it's the inner city rejuvenation project that is similar to what Joburg is doing, or we're looking at the over 500 informal settlements to say, how do we make those spaces a livable place to be? For instance, what we, and I'm going to touch to Junior's question in terms of how will we make sure that this is felt by citizens. And you are correct, Kanye, when you say we're struggling with basics. this is us resolving those basics. And the basics in your municipalities is for us to honor the constitutional obligation that we have, which is to make sure we give basic services to the residents. And so, Junior, in terms of how will we make sure that citizens are benefiting, for the city of Tshwane, we are one of the, I think, the first city in Africa to use the climate budget initiative. What it means is that every project that we are budgeting for, it already has a consideration for how does it respond to climate change. Whether it's a reservoir, whether it's a substation, that's the question that the department must answer. So even without, at the beginning, we're already, thinking of such. Then those projects will go to the IDP. Obviously, the residents then will have their say in terms of the IDP. The other thing which is quite important, especially to me, and I've been preaching this to the colleagues, there's a lot of projects that are being implemented across the city that are meant to showcase our response to climate change. We do have a climate action plan like many cities, and it's all good that you have a plan, but how are you implementing it on the ground? I've made a few examples. For instance, the issue of the bicycle lane in Mamelodi in Solomon Mahlangu Drive. We've got a project in one of our municipal buildings where we're using solar to showcase how we can move to green energy. We've got a project that we are doing with Eskom very soon where we are electrifying an informal settlement using green energy. We, in terms of the substations that are being upgraded, already there's an alternative technology that we are using there that is greener and more friendly. And so those are the projects that even without a resident knowing, already we have affected the agenda of climate change, and it's part of that. But also, if we don't think about the health of our residents, it would be a big mistake for us. So between ourselves, the mayor of Joburg, mayor of Ekurhuleni, we are now ready to tackle the issue of river pollution in a way that is constructive without blaming each other, where we are saying that the solution to the pollution of the rivers in Gauteng, in Tshwane, whether coming from Joburg, coming from Tshwane, is not going to be only funded by Joburg or Ekurhuleni or Tshwane. We obviously need a different approach in which we need to approach financing of the solution. So there's a couple of projects that we are working on to just make sure that every resident or each resident gets to benefit whether they know about it or not. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Executive Mayors. Good morning. Let me rise on the established protocols. My name is Chris Vondo. I'm the spokesperson of the Executive Mayor in the city of Johannesburg. Thank you for your hospitality, Madam Mayor, and the hospitality of GCIS. It's home ground advantage. May I request the second round of the comments and inputs? You'll be the first. Any takers? Follow up, and then the third, the fourth. Or Pule, you'll be the first because you were noted earlier on. So let's request Pule to be number one, and then you'll be second, number third, and then you'll be the last one. Come in, Pule.
Just one question on round two. The impacts of climate change are likely to affect livelihoods, food and water security, and ultimately increase the cost of living for South Africans. Do both cities, city of Tshwane and city of Johannesburg, see this program as a driver and urgent need to address these issues given the challenges I've just mentioned here? Is it an urgent program to address these particular issues? That's number one. And number two, what will be the demands that will be taken to the G20 Summit leaders from here? Resolutions. What will be some of the most important resolutions that will be adopted and essentially taken to the summit? Thank you.
Thank you, Pule.
Good afternoon. Listen from SABC Channel Africa. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Mine is maybe for clarity. And we do know that economic recovery remains a challenge in the continent. And what sort of commitments do you hope to secure from your international partners during this process? And number two, during the finance track, we were told that Egypt and Nigeria are now the permanent attendees of the G20. Are you able to perhaps outline some of the African cities that will be part of this process in June? Thank you.
Number three.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Faye from Swahili Media House. I think my first question has already been answered with the previous colleague, because I wanted to know how many African cities have been invited and confirmed to be part of this process. And I also wanted to know what are the channels for private sector to get involved during this event, because when we touch on the tourism, the fact that our guests are here in South Africa, I think it's just 1 hour flight to Victoria Falls, or 3 hours to Kilimanjaro and Serengeti. So are there possibility for partnership and collaborations for tourism practitioners in South Africa to this other African city? And when it comes to culture and heritage, the inclusivity of social groups in the process of the G20, are we going to have only South African culture and heritage related activities involved, or the rest of the continent is invited? And if they are, how can they get in touch to those invitations? Thank you.
Thank you. Nokanya again from EWN. Mayor Morero, President Cyril Ramaphosa was in the inner city during the weekend. I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, but he did somewhat of a surprise visit with JMPD on some of the regular inspections that they do of the inner city. Are you able to take us into confidence in terms of what his assessment was to you? I imagine he's spoken to you about what it is that he found in the inner city, publicly documented what he would have found. But what is it that he then said to you once he was done with that inspection and that surprise visit? What were the conversations between you and the president post his visits to the inner city? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. May I request the leadership to respond? This should be the last round. For all other engagements, we can do the one-on-ones after that, and Program Director. Thank you.
Let me start with the very last question on President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to Johannesburg. It was Saturday evening, and it was indeed a surprise visit because I was not informed, which I appreciated. And the President is coming to Johannesburg on the 6th and the 7th. And the coming of the President is to say, where is Johannesburg now? Where do we want to take Johannesburg? Understanding that Johannesburg is an economic hub, and it cannot just be left alone to survive on its own without the interests of central government to position Johannesburg and grow the economy, because Johannesburg remains the most important city, because we contribute just over 16% into the national GDP. So I guess the President thought before he comes on Thursday, he'd probably like to go and see. And I suspect some people are probably whispering that there's something that has been happening in the inner city since the 18th of February. So I suspect he then said, let me go and see before I engage these guys so that they don't give me reports that are not factual. And I think he was demonstrating leadership by doing so. Probably if he had told me, then we'll try Ropata Mahlazo. So I guess it was important that he do that. And we appreciated it. So, but at the center, Nogukanya, it's Johannesburg is an economic hub. All of us relies on the success of Johannesburg. So it's an important city, the same way that the capital is an important city. In fact, Gauteng as a province is an important province in the country because of its economic nature. So we have to ensure that this province does not collapse, this province survives. And to be frank and honest with the media people, yes, Johannesburg has been faced with a number of challenges, which we ourselves are trying to work them around so that we can maintain this city and continue to grow. We continuously argue that we are an investment destination, and we have to prove that to investors that yes, indeed, we remain resilient, we remain a city that can confront its problems and resolve them. And that is why some of our partners in the property space, in business, have come forward to say they would want to work with us to ensure that we can grow the economy of Johannesburg and grow Johannesburg itself. So there is movement towards that direction. And the support that we'll be receiving from the presidency, we think is the first step towards making sure that national government really gets involved in its cities. And I think we're not the only city. They will also be visiting Tshwane quite soon, because the president and his cabinet have taken a view that these cities can collapse in their hands. They have to do something. You know the challenges that both Tshwane and Johannesburg have, but both of us are focused on the ball to try and resolve these challenges. And they emanate from whether it's revenue collection, it's infrastructure, etc., etc. So we are focused on those. There was a question about, I think it's Pule, around the climate change. In fact, climate change, and I think all of us have seen, and I think in Johannesburg in 2011, we adopted what we call the Growth and Development Strategy 2040. And if you look at our document then, it already predicted that as a result of climate change, Johannesburg will face massive rainfalls. There will be a lot of rain even in winter. And I think last year you saw between June and July, we had a number of rains in Johannesburg, which was unheard of in just around 2012. We've never had so much rains in winter. We've never had so much rains between January and February. So that in itself indicates that climate change is real and we have to intervene. And one of the interventions is around planting of trees, because we believe we have to use natural solutions to deal with natural disasters in that way. Otherwise, if you try and use artificial interventions, they're likely to fail. So natural disasters requires natural interventions. But over and above on an infrastructure level, in terms of climate change, is for us dealing with issues around stormwater, because we now have heavy rains. We have to deal with stormwater, road infrastructure, so that we can reduce the impact. And in fact, on the 19th, 18 to the 21, we are hosting an Africa Urban Forest Conference in Johannesburg. And already by the 21, we will be declaring 200,000 trees to be built. To be plowed. And in the next 3 years, we hope to at least deliver 1 million trees in Johannesburg. We also have partners in the climate change donor funders, C40 and all other donors, the World Resource Institute. We have also partnered with Johannesburg to try and correct the crisis at Joskei River. You know, every year, as and when there's floods, we have problems. So we have put systems to resolve the Joskei issue. Pule, in terms of climate change. It will affect, of course, a number of issues, and hence we are saying we need to start using water sparingly, because it's likely that we can also get the drought that we never expected. So that's why we're saying use the water sparingly, because our rivers, our dams, are such that we fill them to an extent at which, at least even if there's a drought, we'll still have 3 years at least of clean water to supply for drinking. And that is why the emphasis will always be let's consume our water and consume them sparingly. I think Pulo answered. There's an urgent need to address the climate change. We'll be putting to the G20 municipalities are concerned about the climate change. We'll put it on the agenda because we think central governments have a responsibility throughout the world to fund climate change. Will be put into the agenda financing of municipalities, because that area in itself remains problematic, not only in South Africa, but world over. So those 2 agendas will be put strongly at the G20 agenda for them to consider. So from the U20, we will then take those resolutions into the G20 Summit in November. The countries participating here is the city of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. I think the question comes from, is it Innocent? No. Innocent, yeah. It comes from Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, the city of Accra in Ghana, Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, Freetown of Sierra Leone, Rwanda, Kigali, and Windhoek in Namibia, and Congo, Brazzaville in the Congo. So those are the cities that will form part of the conversation from the African continent, and the rest will be coming from other countries in the world. With the United States, at least about 5 cities are part of the C40 and UCLG, so they will also be participants in the conference. And I think there's another 3 or so in China who are part of the U20. So those are the cities that will participate. But what UCLG presents, it says that the hosts are given an opportunity to nominate a city that they would like to invite to form part of the conference. I think we're giving up to 3, if I'm not wrong. And in South Africa, it's ourselves, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and the City of eThekwini who are participants. But over and above, we have taken a view as the co-chairs that we have an opportunity to invite other metros to participate in the U20. We are just waiting for UCLG to also approve those that we have invited. I think you'll cover the rest of the questions.
Yeah, Nokukanya, MMC Arnold was starting to brag. Yeah, President doesn't come to your city. I'm happy to hear he's coming. You were bragging, ma'am. I saw it. You were bragging. I think just the first thing which will touch on Pule and Innocent's question, I think first of all, for us, we see this as a unique opportunity to have legacy for our cities first. And then that legacy obviously being replicated in our province, in our country, in our continent and the global south. But you can't have impact or legacy if you don't understand what is it that you are trying to achieve. And I think the conversations that need to happen through the webinars, through the op-eds that we're going to have in the lead up to the Sherpa meeting, is for us to say, do we understand the challenges, the pressing challenges that we are facing as these cities? Not only do we understand what are they, so is it climate change, but do we know how to translate what climate change means for Africa? because in most cases we use terminology that Umagogo in Winterfeld won't understand. And when we talk about climate change, we must communicate on behalf of our residents. For us, we can Google and understand the terms. But when I go to Winterfeld and say the IDP budget has prioritized, so 30% of the IDP budget, it looks at responding to climate change. How do I explain that to Magogo so she doesn't think I'm running parallel projects in the city? And I think that's quite important for us. And of course, there is agencies, as Mayor Morero is saying. But in terms of the response to then those pressing challenges, I think it's on us to make sure of the quality and diversity of stakeholders that we bring into the conversation. If, for instance, in Tshwane, we're going to have this conversation without the automotive hub or the automotive sector, we would have left a very important stakeholder. If we're having this discussion without the farmers in Tshwane, we would have committed the biggest sin, because those are the people that must start implementing the solutions at their level as well. For instance, when we talk about, say, for instance, the use of solar on buildings, Tshwane doesn't have the majority of buildings in the city. It's business that owns those buildings. Question is, how do we then inspire business to also be part of the solution? So I think it's quite important in terms of who we're going to include in this conversation, that we include and target the relevant people. In terms of the demands, I think Mayor Morero has covered me there. On the side of economic recovery, the presentation here, it did talk about obviously direct investment that we are anticipating. But in addition to investment that is coming, what is now clear, especially in Africa, is that we are not capitalizing on nature-based solutions. We want technology, we want all of these things, but in Africa, it's been proven over and over again that we've got nature-based solutions that, for instance, we would have undermined in the past, that you get rid of a tree so that you can have a fancy building. And we are paying for those decisions that were once taken. So then, for instance, in the city of Tshwane, when we're looking at responding to the water crisis, we've got our own sources of water. That is one of the nature-based solutions that we must start exploring. But in terms of the question that was asked about tourism, the inclusivity on our part, one, while we're saying Tshwane and Joburg, obviously we get a home ground advantage in terms of you are in my city for 3 days, I can only get you for 4 hours. How do I, showcase what we have here in the city of Tshwane? But we do have, obviously, the bilaterals. In those bilaterals, we do have what is this English word? We can involve other cultures as well. So whether it's a business breakfast or lunch, that would be, in Brazil, we had an African table, for instance, for lunch the other time. And so there are many ways to be inclusive. And I think it goes back to the commitment that we have made to say we don't only want a Joburg and Tshwane event. So it's now up to us to make sure that all the countries and the cities, they feel included, not only what we say, but in the way that we consult them, in the way that we bring in their cultures. So I think that is quite important. I think so, as a last word, on behalf of myself and the Mayor of Joburg, we are looking forward to engaging you as we're taking this conversation, not only with our fellow mayors in South Africa, but where we are now soliciting and consolidating the voice of Africa and the Global South. And it truly is an honor to be chosen cities to host this event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Executive Mayors. Thank you, members of the media, for the questions and the responses that have followed. Just before I do the closing or the vote of thanks, if anyone would have received these lanyards, please make sure they don't throw them away. You can plant them, and if you harvest them in time, they could be ready by Tshwane's Sherpa Summit in June. So there's tomatoes, green beans, cabbage, chilies, Please ensure that we use them sustainably. It's part of the initiative of ensuring that what we sow, so shall we reap. And there we go. We've already started from this one as a sustainable initiative and dealing with issues around climate change, etc. So please, if you do have one, please keep it and utilize it in the ground. Thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to do the closing ceremony, the vote of thanks before we close today's proceedings. I'd like to introduce Mr. Sithole Mbanga. He's the Chief Executive Officer of SALGA. Mr. Mbanga was appointed as CEO in July 2023. He previously served as the CEO of the South African Cities Network. And the South African Cities Network, as we know, is a network of South African cities and partners that encourage the exchange of information, experience, and best practice on urban development and city management. So Mr. Mbanga has held various positions and managerial positions in both the private and public sectors. He's no stranger to the urban discourse in South Africa over the last 20-odd years. Let me rather hand over to him to do the final vote of thanks. Thanks, Sithole.
Thank you very much, Zaid, and thank you very much, colleagues. Mine is green. I'm not sure what will come out of, but it's green. There's lots of green things that didn't come out of this color. On a much more formal note, I would like to stand on the protocol that has been established. I've been asked to do something which is quite simple and straightforward, which is a vote of thanks. Therefore, thank you very much to the two executive mayors, the mayor of Johannesburg and today's host mayor, the mayor of Tshwane, for hosting us today. But I think also it is important for us to thank you as the cities that have decided to take the baton and be responsible for this agenda on behalf of us as municipalities in South Africa. I would like to thank all members of mayoral committees from the two respective municipalities and those that perhaps are not members of mayoral committee that are here, the speakers of the councils of the two municipalities, all mayors from all African countries, some that might be here and some that might not be here, and I think importantly, all of society, members of civil society organizations that are here, as well, I think in particular, the two city managers of these cities. Johan, thanks very much for considering hosting us on behalf of local government as well as on behalf of both co-hosting cities. And I think in particular, I would like to extend our thanks to the GCIS. I would also like to extend our thanks to our international partner organizations, which is C40, which is co-hosting not only this event, but all the events that are related to U20 and all other work that we have worked with them multilaterally to ensure that local government has a space in all events and work that is done in the attempt to govern our countries, our wards, as well as our world. I also would like to thank UCLG, the United Cities and Local Governments, the Secretary General of UCLD. She spoke earlier, Emilia, on behalf of all municipalities of the world. They themselves will be co-hosting U20 on behalf of all municipalities in the world. I am here standing to thank the two municipalities in particular and everybody that is here on behalf of all 257 municipalities that make up the fraternity called local government. I am quite admiral of what I saw today, the love that I saw between the two mayors. It's a clear unity in diversity from a political point of view. I'm not going to say much about the score that came out of the weekend. Nonetheless, whoever won. We will continue being united in diversity. But thanks very much for the love that you continue to display. Colleagues, I also want to say one or two things as a word of thanks, and to say that There are questions that were coming from the floor, particularly from our colleagues in the media, about what the value of U20 is. In fact, the truth is that U20 is a very important platform, similar to any other platform that from time to time we get to be participating in. I just want to speak to three things. U20 is not just only about urban municipalities in South Africa. It is about both rural and urban municipalities. Of course, the host cities in this room are just doing it to host on behalf of all of these 257 municipalities. It's something that we must acknowledge. I'm saying this because 3 weeks ago, both mayors attended a meeting and forced themselves into an agenda of the National Executive of SALGA to say, we are here, we want to share with the National Executive Committee of SALGA what it is that we are going to be doing on behalf of yourselves in hosting U20. And I think I really want to thank you for having done that. It's quite important that you are also not displaying your determination to make sure that there's an agenda that's looking at the urban, but as well as at the urban aspect of the work that we do as municipalities. Secondly, what U20 does is that it helps us to rethink the financing of local government. It is true that over the period since local government was established in 1998 through the white paper process, local government has been supported by only about 9 to 9.5% of the budget of the country. So year on year, we have never, as local government, managed to attract a contribution from national fiscus that is more than 9.5%. And as the mayor of Johannesburg was saying, when local government was established, there were quite a number of assumptions that were made. And one of them was that we will give local government only 9.5% of the fiscus, the rest you will go and find. And the assumption was that you, as citizens in municipalities, in cities, in intermediate cities, in deep rural areas, you will be forking that particular bill. The reality is that that's not the truth. As this first generation of democratic local government, we are realizing that citizens are struggling. They're struggling to pay for the services of municipalities. This then puts a lot of pressure on the local governments, and therefore there's a lot that needs to change. So U20 is an opportunity for us to start learning from how others manage to refinance themselves. And in our instance, I think there was a question around the financing of infrastructure. U20 does give us an opportunity to think about the financing of municipal infrastructure, particularly infrastructure that is impacted upon by the effects of climate change. The last point I would like to make is that local government is currently in the process of rethinking the white paper that established local government in 1998. We will officially from the 1st of April start the process of reviewing the local government white paper. Government has agreed that as local government, we are giving you the opportunity to start reimagining local government and rethink how should local government work better. And yes, of course, it is about financing, but it is also about leadership. What type of leadership must be leading local government? This is something that cannot be answered or responses given to by those that are in national government. It is us, it is our responsibility as leaders in local government to provide a response to that. Leadership of local government, by the way, is not limited to those that are elected. There are those that are unelected. These are people that lead businesses, for instance. These are people that lead civil society organizations in their different segments, whether it's youth, whether it's women, whether it's pressure groups, in whatever format they might be. Our intention as all of us as local government, including the 2 municipalities and cities that are here, is to work with all of society to rethink and to reimagine local government. And we intend to exploit the opportunity that has been given to us by national government. Therefore, U20 is one way in which we are rethinking a local government. In so saying, you are also invited to the party. At this point in time, I'm going to call it the Morero and Moya party, because that's what it's going to be for the next couple of days until October when U20 is here. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sitole. On that note, I'd like to close today's proceedings. Thank you very much. If there are any other one-on-one interviews or any photo opportunities, please engage with the relevant mayoral spokespersons, and I think that would conclude it from there. Yeah, excellent. Okay.
Quick announcement. We'll request our executive mayors just to have a photo shoot as a handover between the two cities, shake hands, and then we don't have a deputy mayor in Johannesburg, Executive Mayor Nasiphi, so we'll request both of them to join, and then we'll